Hi, this is Michelle from the Cooking Lab. Today we are going to make fresh pasta by hand. This is a great cooking project for all of you at home. For some people who've never made fresh pasta before, this is a great beginner's tutorial, but this is also great for kids and teens. So let's get started. All we need is some flour. In Italy, generally speaking, 00 flour is used, but all-purpose flour is perfectly fine. What we're going to do with our flour is we're going to mound it, okay? And then we're going to create a well with it. So just with your fist, make a well here. Okay, make sure that, okay, great. Then you're going to take 2 eggs. This makes about a ½ pound of pasta. So if you want to make a whole pound, just double this recipe. So what we are going to do is just crack our eggs directly into our well. Okay. Another egg directly into the well. All right, keep a towel handy. And then just a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in there, just to swirl, in order to make the dough more, the oil makes the dough a little bit more silky, a little bit smoother. Okay. All you need is a fork. So first things first, forks up, what you're going to do is scramble your eggs without getting any flour or just getting minimal flour into the dough. So just start by making scrambled eggs. We don't want to add in too much flour at the beginning because we want to really get it in there gradually in order to make a more tender dough. If you just kind of dump all the flour in there all at once, the dough never really kind of mixes well together and never gets that desired consistency that you want. All right, so we have our eggs scrambled. For you kids out there, that means that you can no longer tell the difference between the yolk and the white. Okay, now what we're going to do is very slowly, gradually, take a little bit of flour with our fork from the walls of your well, just a little bit at a time. And try not to breach those walls, and just very gently, gradually, without it spilling over, get that mixed in. Once that looks mixed in, just keep going a little bit more. Obviously, you can do, if you have a food processor, you can make the dough in the food processor. It'll come together in a snap, or a KitchenAid mixer as well. However, there's something very satisfying and therapeutic about making this by hand. This is the way my grandmother taught me. So this is the way that I always like to teach how to make pasta for beginners at home and in our cooking classes. Okay, so you saw I just took a little bit more, and we're gonna keep on doing that until pretty much all of our flour is in there. So let's keep going. I'm going to kind of even this out a little bit because there's not as much flour and I don't want it to spill over, but we're at the point now that it won't spill over anyway. I'm using a wooden board, as you can see. However, you can use any kind of flat surface. You can use your kitchen counter. Just make sure you disinfect it, clean it off really, really well. But marble, granite counters work well here. Or you can use a large, oversized cutting board, excuse me. Okay, so hopefully you guys are following along with me and you're at the same point. And I just want to add, if at any point you're doing this at home and have any questions, please feel free to send us an Instagram message at the Cooking Lab PW, a Facebook message, an email. We're happy to help you out at home with this cooking project. Okay. At this point, you see that you've added in almost all of the flour, which is great. So what you're going to do is really try, you don't want to get your hands in there quite yet because it's still quite sticky, and what's going to happen is that your hands are just going to get, it's going to be a mushy mess, and it'll just be, your hands will be covered in this sticky dough. So what you're doing, instead of this gradual, around, now just take your fork and kind of fold in the remainder of this flour, right? Fold it in. Fold it in until the point that it looks quite dry. Once it really looks like it's dry and starting to come together, that's when you're going to get your hands in there, but not before, because otherwise all of this dough is just going to stick to your hands and you're going to end up wasting all of it. And I do recommend right here, if you're a beginner, start just by doing the 2 egg as opposed to a whole pound, which would be 4 eggs, just because it'll be a lot easier for you to control and to manage. Let me move this out of the way. Okay, so you see at this point, we have pretty much all of our flour in there, right? So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to put our fork down and now start getting our hands dirty. And this is the fun part. So first things first, just with the palms of your hands, not with your fingertips. Don't just start sticking your fingers in there because it's just going to get all over. What you want to do is start with the palms of your hand, gathering the rest of the flour into this dough and start really incorporating it. And now, oops. All right, so we have it. Now we're going to start to knead. So with the heel of your hand, so not the heel of your foot, but the heel of your hand, this kind of hard part right here. This is what I always say anytime I teach this to both kids and adults. This is what we're going to do. We're going to push, we're going to turn, and we're going to fold. Push, turn, fold. Push, turn, fold. And it starts to become this very automatic movement. Push, turn, fold. And what happens, so it's basically just little quarter turns that you're doing, which is really the technique to do, to knead almost all doughs. Push, turn, fold. I actually find that when I teach this, people start to kind of in unison start saying push, turn, fold, push, turn, fold, because to remind them, and it becomes then this very natural, automatic movement. So, now obviously, if you're dealing with a larger mass of dough, if you do graduate up to that 1 pound, you're probably going to start using 2 hands and doing this with 2 hands. But with only 2 eggs, this kind of half-pound dough, this is good enough. The 1 hand is good enough, excuse me. All right, push, turn, fold, and just keep on going. What are you looking for? So first off, let me tell you, you're gonna have to do this for at least 5 minutes. What are we doing? Kneading it, when we knead it, it means that we're working the glutens in the dough so that we have a dough that can stay together and be very elastic so that when you start to roll it out and shape it, it doesn't fall apart. So you see, look how nice this already looks in just a couple of minutes. So I would recommend that you knead this for at least 5 minutes. But here's the thing, here is the trick. We want the 3 S's. You want your dough to be soft, you want it to be smooth, and you want it to be springy. What does springy mean? That when you take your thumb, you press down, it immediately bounces back up. So this dough, it didn't immediately come back up, it kind of took its time, but it's getting there. It also isn't quite as smooth as I want it to be, but that's because I haven't been kneading it very long. But you are going to knead it for at least 5 minutes until it's soft, smooth, and springy. Okay. So at this point, after you get the dough, have the dough looking like you want it to, and I'm going to show you with some dough that I made earlier. Okay, so you see this? This is dough that has been rested for 30 minutes. It springs back up, it's smooth, it's silky. So this is what you want your dough to look like. At this point, what you're going to do, either wrap it in plastic or just take a bowl and cover it, put it upside down. This is where you're going to press pause right now on this video, because you really do need to let your dough rest, to kind of let the glutens finish doing their work. Now, if you want to knead it like the nonnas used to, for a good half hour, you don't need to let it rest at all. But most people just let it rest for at least a half hour before they start to roll it out. So at this point, press pause, cover up your dough, and then you'll hit pause again and we'll start to roll it out. Okay, so your dough has now rested for at least 30 minutes. So what we're gonna do is just start by handling, especially if you're a beginner, just start by handling a smaller piece at a time. So just cut your dough in half and then be sure to cover your other piece so it doesn't dry out and develop a skin. Flour your board. So you have some bench flour here. Let me move my knife too. You have some bench flour here. So keep some bench flour, just a little bit of flour in a bowl. Okay, so first things first, so take your piece of dough and just with your fingers, your hands, or palm of your hands, just flatten it out. Okay, I'm gonna move this, flatten it out. Now obviously if you have a pasta machine at home, this will happen a lot faster, but not everyone has a pasta machine at home, and we're certainly not gonna tell you that you have to make pasta, in order to make pasta, that you need a pasta machine. All you really need is a rolling pin, okay? So, once you have flattened this out a bit, make sure you have flour nearby and on your board. You may also want to throw a little bit of flour on your rolling pin. So what you're going to do is you're going to start from the middle, go up, start from the middle, go down, and then flip it 25 degrees. So start from the middle, go up, start from the middle, go down, quarter turn. Start from the middle, go up, go back down, quarter turn. So the question that I get from everyone during class, especially the kids, am I done yet? Am I done yet? And what I say is, you are not done until you can see the imprint of your hand through that pasta dough, so that you can count all 5 fingers. Keep going around in a circle. And if you do have a pasta machine at home, feel free to send me any questions via Instagram or Facebook. If you need help, if it's been dusty in the closet and you haven't had time to use it, I'm happy to help you get started with that. But for us, the most important thing is that you know that you can do this simply with a rolling pin. So this is going to take a little bit of time. So if you're following along with me with some dough, which you'll see, and at a certain point, what you're going to find is that certain parts of your dough feel thinner than others. So always from the middle, just kind of go to all the angles, because having it in even thickness is the most important part of this, so that you have an evenly textured pasta when you're done. And then once in a while, what you want to do, is flour your board. You can flip it over and work on the other side. Now you can also try wrapping your dough around your rolling pin and just start rolling it out that way too. It's kind of a fun little trick. All right, let's check. Let's check and see one more, and then I'm going to check and see whether we're ready. Okay, so Can you see the palm of your hand? Yes, I think you can, right? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers. All right, so what next? This is the point where flour is key, right? You want to make sure. So you can make many different shapes of pasta using a knife. You kids, use a paring knife, the grown-ups, or if you have a pastry wheel, even better, but a sharp knife. So let's start by just making some classic tagliatelle. So let's make a rectangle, okay? Trim this end, but don't throw away these scraps. Trim this end, okay. So a little bit of flour. So you can make fettuccine, okay, tagliatelle, tagliolini, which are somewhere not quite as thin as spaghetti, but much thinner than tagliatelle. You can make pappardelle, which are really thick, so really wide. So any kind of noodle you want. So what you're going to do is you're going to make a scroll. So from each side, make a scroll. Okay. So let's trim off the ends. Be very careful. And then, so if you want to make fettuccine, you'll probably go about a 1/2 inch to 1/4 of an inch. Pappardelle, a 1/2 inch to 3/8 of an inch. Tagliolini, really, just your knife cuts will be very close together. So let's start just with basic fettuccine. Okay, so what I'm doing is cutting, and then I'm looking to make sure that they're all even, similar widths. Okay, let's try these. And then you're going to unfurl them. Awesome. And you have some hand-cut fettuccine here, which actually texturally are a lot more interesting than machine-made. All right. So what I would recommend is to when you let them dry at first, leave them flat, and then and add a little bit of flour. If you have semolina flour, coarser semolina flour at home, use that, but regular flour is fine. Let them dry a little bit, but then eventually, once they're dry and there's kind of all the moisture has been absorbed, what you're going to do is make little nests. And what you can do also, if you're never put them in the freezer, never put them in the refrigerator, because the refrigerator has too much moisture, which will make the pasta mushy. But if you want, you can just put them on trays, flat in the freezer, and then once they're frozen, you can put them into Ziploc bags or reusable plastic containers, and then take them out and drop them into the water. Let's go back for just one moment. If you want to make thinner pasta, what you would do is your knife cuts would be much smaller. And then they're not quite spaghetti, but kind of, and check it out. You have tagliolini. These tend to stick together a little bit more easily, so it's super important to give these a little bit of room to lay out and dry, a little bit of flour before you kind of make them into those little nests. And then the next one is pappardelle. So if you really like those thick, wide noodles, here you have this is probably about 1.5 inches, so about 3/4 of an inch. There you go. You have nice, thick, hearty pappardelle, which is great with like a hearty bolognese. That's a great project as well. We can do that another day. Okay, what else? Now, these scraps. Never throw away these precious scraps, because you can make maltagliati with these. Means badly cut. I always keep a bag of these in the freezer, and then I throw them into soups. So what you would do, just make any shape you want. And then you have these great pasta scraps that'll add some nice texture and starchiness to your soups. If you want to see what these look like, you have these. You also can make, let's use this little one over here, okay? Quadrucci, which are maltagliati, but even smaller, like little squares. So check it out. Here we go. And these are great in lentil soup. Actually, we just shared on Facebook and Instagram and for newsletter a recipe for lentil soup. So if you have some of these pasta scraps, check and add these to your lentil soup. This is awesome, just because they're kind of the same size as the lentils. So it's great in soup. And then, of course, we can make bow ties. And I know you kids that I've done pasta classes with love bow ties. So if you have a nice little rectangle of pasta, put it down on your board and just with your two fingers, with your thumb and your pointer finger, pinch in the middle. And you can have some farfalle or bow ties. I don't know if you can see that well, but there's some over here. And then of course you can also have a longer lasagna sheet. So check out all of the different shapes that you can do with your fresh pasta. So everyone, I hope that you've enjoyed learning how to make fresh pasta, and we really hope to see you at the Cooking Lab soon.